Sometimes a single, almost unbelievable story of survival can teach us something really profound about how we solve our own complex problems. It turns out that's exactly the case here. So let's dive into this incredible story and see what lessons it holds for navigating the unknown in our own lives.
Okay, so picture this. It's Christmas Eve 1971. A 17-year-old girl named Juliana Kopka falls from an incredible 10,000 feet. That's almost 2 miles, straight down into the Peruvian Amazon rainforest. I mean, it's a scenario that just completely defies belief. So, what happened? Well, she was a passenger on Lanza Flight 508. About 30 minutes after taking off, the plane flew right into a massive thunderstorm. A bolt of lightning hit the wing, and the entire aircraft just started to disintegrate in midair, ejecting everyone into the storm below. Julianne, who was still strapped into a row of seats, just plummeted towards the jungle. Somehow, the thick canopy of trees cushioned her fall just enough, but all 91 other people on that flight, including her own mother, tragically died. The fact that she made it is, well, it's almost incomprehensible.
This moment right here, this is the ultimate confrontation with the unknown. One second you're on a plane, maybe reading a book, and the very next, your entire world is literally erased. You're faced with this absolute, terrifying uncertainty. So how do you even begin to survive something like that? And that's the thing. Julianne's story is about so much more than just physical endurance. It really becomes this powerful metaphor for what happens whenever we face a challenge that's so new, so complex, that none of our old maps or our old rules apply anymore.
And that brings us to this idea of unlearning the rules. Julianne's crisis in the jungle was obviously a physical one, but it's a perfect mirror for the kind of mental challenges we all face. We tend to operate inside these little intellectual cages we build for ourselves, and to break free, we have to unlearn what we think we know.
Think back to school for a second. Remember the classic 5-paragraph essay? It's the perfect example of a rigid formula, right? You have your introduction, 3 body paragraphs, and a conclusion. It's designed for a world where there are clear, simple answers and a nice, predictable path to get to them.
But here's the problem with that. This comparison shows it pretty clearly. Formulas are comforting. They give us structure, but they totally fail us when we step into the real world. Real problems, our own personal jungles, they're messy, they're ambiguous, and they sure don't come with an instruction manual. And this is really the heart of it. If you want to make real progress, if you want to be truly creative, you have to resist that very human urge to just slap an old, comfortable formula onto a brand new challenge. Like Julianne, you have to be willing to start without a map.
Which brings us right back to Juliani. She was literally without a map. So how in the world did she navigate the jungle? Well, it all came down to a completely different set of skills. Not rules, but habits of mind that allowed her to adapt and survive.
It turns out that experienced writers, creative thinkers, and yes, survivors like Julianne all cultivate these exact same habits. They stay curious about what's around them, they're attentive to the small details, they're flexible enough to change course, and they are just relentlessly persistent, even when everything goes wrong.
Now, you could say she was lucky, and maybe there was some luck involved, but it was so much more about adapting. Her parents were zoologists who ran a research station in the Amazon, so yeah, she had some basic survival skills, but she still had to improvise. For 11 days, with a broken collarbone and an arm infested with botfly larvae, she kept going, adapting to every single new terror the jungle threw at her. This whole experience perfectly illustrates a fascinating concept from a survival psychologist named Lawrence Gonzalez. It's called attunement. And get this, as Juliana was falling from the sky, she remembered thinking that the jungle canopy below her looked like cauliflowers. Instead of being paralyzed by terror, she was deeply attentive to the world around her. That mindset is absolutely key for finding motivation in a crisis. So Julianne had to find a physical path out of all that chaos. And that process, it's actually strikingly similar to how we find our way through really complex ideas or problems, by discovering a path that already exists and then following its logic. This one simple thing became her guiding principle. Her father had taught her that small streams flow into larger rivers, and those larger rivers eventually lead to civilization. The stream was like a conversation that nature was already having. All she had to do was join it and follow its flow.
This whole idea is captured perfectly by a literary critic named Kenneth Burke in this famous metaphor. He described creative or academic work not as something you do alone, but as joining a conversation that's already going on. The trick is to understand the flow before you try to add to it.
So what does that mean in practice? Well, first, you have to accept that you've arrived late. The discussion was already happening. So what do? You listen. You try to understand what's been said, get the vibe, the tenor of the conversation, and only then, once you get it, do you put in your oar and contribute your own point. The takeaway is simple. You have to listen first. Just like Julianne listened to the jungle and found the stream.
And all of this brings us to the end of Julianne's unbelievable journey, and what her story really teaches us about resilience when we're faced with something truly unimaginable.
By following that river day after day, she eventually stumbled upon a small lumberjack camp. The men there couldn't believe their eyes. They treated her wounds, they gave her food, and they took her back to civilization, finally ending her harrowing 11-day ordeal in the Amazon. And this is just so powerful. Her survival wasn't the end of her story. It was really a catalyst. She went on to get her PhD in biology, specializing in bats, and eventually she took over as the director of the very same research station her parents had founded, in the jungle that almost claimed her life. But you know, her story is also a vital reminder of the profound, lasting weight of trauma. She herself has said that the thought of why she was the only one to survive, it haunts her and it always will. It's just so important to acknowledge the deep psychological scars that an event like this leaves behind. And that's really the ultimate lesson here, isn't it? The goal isn't to have a formula for every single problem. It's to cultivate those habits of mind, that curiosity, that attentiveness, flexibility, and persistence that allow us to face any challenge, any unknown, with a sense of purpose and resilience. So I'll just leave you with this thought. We all face our own jungles, those complex, uncertain challenges in our work, in our studies, or just in our lives. The lesson from the survivor's mindset is that with the right habits, we all have what it takes to find our way through.